You're watching the Isaiah Factor, Uncensored.
What are y'all doing?
What is y'all doing?
Guess. Take a guess what I'm doing.
Hey, you're like a baby to me. Why you?
Guess what I'm doing.
I don't know what you doing. I just see you snatching him off the.
No.
So what? So what's going on then?
You're stealing stuff. If you break into your house to steal something.
Just horrible. An 80-year-old African-American boy in New York is detained by cops over allegations he stole a bag of potato chips. The video is hard to watch, especially since you can hear the boy crying out for help. My guest, just as angry as many of you out there, weigh in tonight.
This is a huge piss-off factor to see this 8-year-old boy, little boy, black boy, manhandled by police officers over a bag of damn chips. Todd, let's begin with you.
You said it perfectly. It's a piss-off moment. There's no other words to describe it. It just pisses you off because in a time where there's a lot of crime going on in the country, and there's a lot of legitimate, real crime going on, you focus your attention on what some people say is a $3 bag of chips. There's many ways that you could handle that. I was a child once, obviously, and I stole from stores. They told my father handled that. The cops were never called, and I learned my lesson. And I'm really upset with some of the language the police used, and they were talking to the brother that was filming. They said, what if this was your house?
If you break into your house to steal something.
Nah, man. What is that? A bag of chips?
Somebody broke into your house. I think as black men, we know that people of color have already got strikes against them. So we're going to be hesitant a lot of times to call the cops. My next door neighbor had some Hispanic kids break into his house 3 times. It took them 3 times for him to report them and call the cops because he knew of what type of hurdles they would face as being minorities in this country. So a lot of times when I hear police and I hear some people in the white community say, what would you do? I wouldn't do that. I would school the young man. I would tell him what's going on and I would tell him how wrong it is, but I would never involve cops. And if the cops came, they should have just chastised him, told his parents, and that'd have been the end of it.
And really quick, Todd, I want to piggyback on what you said. What that cop said was, what if that kid breaks into your house? So he's already pegged that 8-year-old little boy as a future criminal.
That's the thing, bro. I went to a mixed high school, Eisenhower High School. It was great, but what we would do that was similar to white kids was always seen as more violent or more negative. If we hung out with our friends in the hallways, it was considered gang related. Break it up. The white kids could have fun. I've worked in retail where the white employees would steal CDs from the Blockbuster music. They would let their friends come in and steal. But then when a black person came in and said, Todd, watch him because he might steal. That's my thing. Like when a white kid does something similar, it's not seen as a big deal. But when a black person does something, he's going to be a criminal. He's going to break into your house. And like I said earlier, black people know the hurdles that people of color face. So we're not going to be as quick to call the cops. We're going to handle it. But we know we don't want those kids having a record for nonsense because it'll follow them for the rest of their lives.
And Rashonda, let's hear your perspective, not only as a journalist, but as a mother, seeing how that little boy was treated by several adult male police officers, not 1, not 2, more than 3.
I was infuriated as I watched the video, but you know what I did when I saw this? I pulled my Matthew McConaughey time to kill moment. I always say when we're looking at that, close your eyes and imagine if he was white. You can't make me believe that they would have treated a little white boy like that over some chips. And, they're justifying it now by saying they didn't take him to jail. They took him home to his parents. But was the action necessary? Could they have talked to him? Could they have done something differently? And I think that they could have, and they would have if he wasn't a little black boy. Now, that little boy is scarred. He is traumatized for life.
That video will remain and he will be reminded how they saw him. And Todd, you and I briefly talked about this. Sometimes some officers don't see kids as kids. They see him as a black male. He's a threat. Let's take him in.
It's obviously systemic with the police department, but it's systemic in American society, period. Because I've always heard, I've had a friend of mine, a fraternity brother who is a cop who happens to not be African-American, say that there's more crime in the black community. But is there? Or is that neighborhood over policed? Because I've done some things that were illegal. As a child, I never got arrested. So was that tallied in the crime for black? I mean, a lot of times white kids can do the same thing that black kids do, and they get tapped on the wrist or whatever. So is there really more crime in black communities? Are black kids more susceptible to a life of violence? And I don't believe so. I believe that we're over policed. A lot of times when black people have problems. I've heard people in Acres Homes, there's a police station in Acres Homes in West Montgomery. There's been shootings and people call the cops and they don't show up. But then I know it's a different city, but then you harass young black kids for chips and stuff like that. That's where the disconnect happens. When is it, you're supposed to protect and serve us, not harass and arrest us for nonsense. So it's just a systemic situation in America. It's always been like that. Unfortunately, it always will be like that. But like Rashonda said, close your eyes and imagine if that was a white child. White parents, imagine if that was your child. How would you feel? It's a bag of chips. Make him pay the $3 or let another. I would have paid the money for the chips and told the boy, let me talk to your daddy and we're going to get the situation. Don't ever do that again. That did not require him getting into a police car. And you saw how he reacted. He was obviously traumatized. Chill out, man. Yeah. Now he's scarred for life, man. Like, bro, it's not that serious, man. We have real crime and bags of chips aren't that serious. And I don't know who called the cops on him. That's my point. Would you have called the cops on him if he was white? Or would you have? And
it was cops, plural. That's my problem.
Yeah, somebody needs to tell, like, this is not that serious, bro. This is not that serious. We need to educate this kid because that's a child. Children do childlike things. Like when I was a child, I did childish things. When I became an adult, I put away all childish things. I'm paraphrasing, but that is a child. He should be allowed to make mistakes without you traumatizing him, without possibly putting a criminal record on him that will follow him the rest of his life. That's damaging to black and brown kids when it comes to going to college, when it comes to getting. You can't even, a lot of times, rent an apartment or buy a house. Sometimes if you have a criminal record, getting a job, you're stigmatizing these kids for nonsense and then say, well, more black people commit crimes. I don't necessarily believe that's true. You might be arresting more black and brown kids, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the white kids aren't doing the same thing in the Woodlands. You just ignored it and telling their mother, and that's the end of the story. So numbers can lie. People say numbers don't lie, but numbers can definitely lie if you take them out of context.
Rashonda, what do you think should happen with these police officers? Obviously, the mayor said no handcuffs were used. But and then there is an investigation. They're reviewing the video. What do you think should happen with these officers?
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be some training because you're gonna continue to see this. Their actions were a direct result of preconceived notions. And you have to catch those problems at the root. And that's what a lot of these departments are not doing. Those officers felt like we're going to teach him a lesson. But they're not looking at the fact that if it had been a different child, they would have handled it differently. They're not looking at the long-term effects. So I definitely think some training. I don't know if they should necessarily completely lose their jobs, but they should have some kind of punishment as a message to the other men and women in that department.
All right. We want to thank you guys for joining us, talking about this very horrible situation and video. Thank you all for joining us tonight.